Right now, everyone's telling you what leadership should look like. Be louder, build a platform, get attention, but no one talks about what it costs to lead. The pressure, the weight, the moments while you're pouring into everyone else, but feel empty yourself. Because real leadership isn't proven when everything's going well, it's revealed when it's not. In the quiet moments, when no one's watching, when you have to choose obedience over comfort. And in a world chasing influence, we're losing the heart of leadership, because it was never about being seen. It was about serving. It was about sacrifice. It was about going first. And today we're sitting down with Pastor Kim Anthony from Life and Legacy Church to talk about what leadership really looks like behind the scenes. The pressure, the calling, the responsibility of building people, not just platforms. So we're going deeper into faith, into identity, into what it really means to lead well and build something that lasts. This conversation is for anyone leading or anyone called to. Let's get to work.
One Rep Max exists because men were not created to be passive, silent, or soft. We believe masculinity is disciplined, responsible, sacrificial. It's the willingness to carry the load when no one else wants to. Dig the trenches even though you're dead tired. Protect and provide for the ones that you love. We reject comfort as a goal and weakness as virtue. We believe men are called to lead their homes, master themselves, tell the truth and carry weight. This podcast is not for spectators, it's for men willing to train spiritually, physically, and morally until strength becomes instant. When pressure hits, when you're down and out, when you can't do it anymore, who you are shows up. This is your One Rep Max. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 5. We've got a special guest today, Al and I. So we've got Pastor Kim Anthony from Life and Legacy Church. Absolute legend of a pastor. We get a lot of wisdom from him. Hey, we take a lot of guidance, and just me personally, I believe he's one of the reasons why I stuck with Life and Legacy. Very welcoming. The way you present the word is just unlike any other I've seen before.
Thank you.
One of the recent ones you've preached was about on Easter about the gospel. I think I told you that one was one of the best gospel preachers I've heard ever.
Thanks, man.
So we're honoured to have you.
It's great to be here. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And right back at you guys. I mean, I love what you're doing here. You guys got a very unique style individually and together. I think it's great. There's some good chemistry, and I love people that are stepping out, being innovative, doing new things, spreading the gospel in different ways. So I'm excited I know you guys just starting off, but I'm excited to see how it goes and where it takes you guys.
Yeah, man. It's just like, thank you again for giving us the space. Like without you in the church, we wouldn't have the space.
Well, that's just part of the vision is like we want to be a platform where other people can express themselves, can do because there is a barrier to entry to a lot of the things that we want to do. Yeah. We got to pay for equipment and stuff, and if we can all come together and go, okay, we've got a platform, because the church is just the people anyway, right? And go, all right, we've got a platform, and there's a whole bunch of things that we're doing in the background to try and get more of that happening. But people got stuff on their lives, man. They've got gold, and it's not even that far below the surface. You don't have to dig that, and you just got to give them the space to shine, so to speak. Give them the opportunity, and I guess that's part of the vision. And so, we bought this with that in mind, like the equipment here and everything. Nice. I had to put the case together for the board, and like, oh yeah, they're always a bit of skeptical. Kent's a bit skeptical. Oh, are we actually going to use it? It's going to come. I'm going to take a photo of this and go, look, I told you.
Yeah, nice.
Nice. So, yeah.
Let's go. Well, this is a milestone for us, bro. So you're our first guest. We decided every 5th episode, like 5, 10, 15, to have a guest.
Cue the fireworks, the streamers.
The streamers come down. I'll edit. Yes.
If you're listening on Spotify, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a milestone for us, and we had a chat about it, and we thought, you'd be really good, because we're talking about men, and we believe that all men are really called to be leaders, like not necessarily organizationally, but definitely, in their own homes, in their own families. And so let's just have a chat about leadership. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think we want to kick off with probably just a bit of your background, just so we can get a sense of maybe where you started, and then we'll sort of just keep the conversation organically flowing from there and see where we end up.
Yeah, cool. So I started, in terms of my work and so on, I started as an engineer. So my dad's a pastor as well, as you guys know. So ministry was always around me, and I always thought that I'd be involved somehow, but not necessarily as a pastor, or certainly a senior pastor. Particularly when I was young and seeing my dad in the ministry, people say, "Oh, your dad's a minister. It's quite natural that you want to be a minister." I never wanted to be a minister, because my dad was a minister. Partially because there's no money in it, and when I was growing up, that was like immigrant sort of mindset. It's like, oh, I'm gonna make something of myself, and we immigrated when I was 6 years old. So I was kind of like on that money trail sort of thing, stability, build a future for myself. And, I'm like, that's probably, I'll be involved in church, but I'm going to have my career. So that's the path I took, and became an engineer and all of that. And I did that for quite a while. But I think really around that, say maybe 27, 28, I had this real sense of I wasn't satisfied. On paper, I had everything. Like, I had a really good job. I was earning good money. We owned our own house, had investments. Like, I was doing really well. Definitely in the right trajectory. I was aiming, trying a few entrepreneurial things that were going okay at the time. And married, had a kid on the way, and just I would come home most nights to Bethany, and I would ask the rhetorical questions like, oh, what am I doing with my life? And so there was this real sense of I'm actually not where I'm meant to be. And that the answer to that wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm meant to be a pastor. That kind of just unrolled itself, revealed itself, and the opportunity came up to take on my dad's church. And so rather than take that culture on and everything, what we did was, it was a few people at that point in time. Al was one of them. He was there from the very start 10 years ago, and there was about 10, 12 of us. And so we planted Life and Legacy Church. I said, come join, let's do something new. We planted Life and Legacy Church, and that was 10 years ago. So in terms of my leadership in ministry, that's where it started.
Wow. Yeah. And so what did that journey from the very beginning of Life and Legacy look like?
Man, it was humble beginnings. Al can attest that we were in the foyer of a school hall, and you played guitar, right?
I played very humble, bro. I was worship leading, bro. So you got to be humble. Be humble.
I think we need evidence of your voice, bro.
Oh, bro, no.
Can you sing?
Can I sing? Yeah. I worship led for like 7 years.
Yeah, no, it doesn't mean you can sing.
Harsh.
You first, bro.
I'm terrible, I'll admit it.
Very humble. So it was just like, it was Al on guitar, Bethany on keys, my wife on keys. Toa was singing, so it was like three of them. That was the worship team. And it's about, we did end up growing relatively quickly. When I say, we doubled, tripled in size, like, that's not huge numbers when you're 12 people, and that's how it started. And it started with vision. We were always about, hey, we want to reach people for Jesus. Huge ups and downs. One of the big highlights for me, because I grew up in like a church pioneering sort of situation where we were just renting halls and so on. having our own building was always very important to me. And so to actually move into this building where we are now, I think it was 3 years later, was like a massive miracle. Like from like zero in the bank, like, you know, and to having this space that we're in now that can support, you know, all of what we're doing. Is a platform for all of us, right? Was just a massive thing. And then of course COVID hit. That was a big down. And yeah, so we've seen, you know, the last 2 years have been exceptional in terms of growth and what we've seen happening in our church. So plenty of ups and downs along that journey for sure.
So for people that aren't aware, like Life and Legacy now, like in terms of numbers, we've got 3 services, 8 a.m., 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. and all of them are getting pretty consistent numbers, right? Like we're getting
pretty
decent amount of people through the door.
10 a.m. is the big one.
Yeah.
We've just started the 5. We're seeing how that goes, but that's a good life-giving service, so that'll likely continue. Yeah.
So like, you wouldn't have seen that vision at the very beginning of your humble beginnings when you were renting out halls and stuff. Obviously, it's something that you wanted to achieve, but it might not have quite been at the forefront of the vision just then. But what kept you consistent through those low times you speak about? What kept you keep showing up to have faith that this is going to turn into the church that you imagined it wanted to be? You wanted it to be.
Yeah, that's a good question, man. You know, I'm a big proponent of just consistency.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, were there doubts? Yeah. You know, more doubts in myself. Like, do I have what it takes to go to that next level? But ultimately, I think being consistent to where you feel God has called you. You know, it's like the old adage. You know, it's a 10-year journey. A 10-year or overnight success is a 10-year journey.
Yeah.
Right. And nothing happens just without consistency over a period of time and pushing through these tough times. It's just a fact. In fact, I remember Steve Jobs, I was watching a clip once saying, he goes, you got to do something that you really, really love, right? Because when everyone tells you to quit and you should stop, you're going to keep doing it because you love it anyway. You're just going to do it when it's unreasonable to do it.
Yeah.
And often on the other side of that is success. Where most people will give up and go, well, why are you doing that? But if you're doing something that you love, and so I think for me, looking back, I think it's a mixture of what I'd love to do. I love to be around people. I love to lead people. I had a personal mission statement, right? Which was to connect people to Christ and empower them with purpose. So before we had a church, and that became in the early days the vision of our church, but that was my personal vision.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so this is what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about people actually achieving their potential. Like, there's nothing more depressing to me when I was 27, 28, in that period of my life, thinking that I'll live my life and actually won't accomplish what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
Like, because of whatever constraints, or, financial constraints, or I never have the opportunity, whatever it is, like, to live outside of what I'm purposed to do and just do what I need to do was so incredibly depressing to me. Like, I just, it breaks me in ways that I can't explain. Right. And so to see that in other people, them living their lives without being filled with purpose, is very, I feel very distorted about that.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, I think it's multifaceted, right? We're like, okay, I love what I do. I want to see people with a calling on their life. I want to give them the opportunity. In tough times, my wife and I, we talk about it, we pray about it. Is this what God wants us to keep doing? And we'd get that confirmation. We'd have good people around us that would speak into us, and that's what gets you through the tough times. It's not always tough. Like there are seasons that are tough. It gets you through the tough times, and it's been my experience that every growth season, everything beautiful comes out of a tough season.
Yeah.
Like everything. Like if I trace back every breakthrough of our church, including the purchase of this building, including the recent growth that we've experienced, including us even starting the church.
Yeah.
There was a season just before that was dark.
Yeah.
That was really tough, where God took us on that journey with Him alone. And so that's been my experience. And so I think consistency, resilience, through those periods, and doing what you love, having good people around you that can speak into people that you can trust. There's something that's always said in pastor circles is you never make major decisions in crisis. Like never.
Absolutely.
And there've been people that have quit, and you can't undo some decisions, right? Okay. Most decisions you can, but some you can't. And so when you make bad decisions in crisis, often you're stuck with them. And so, to answer your question, I think it's multifaceted, but loving what you do, good people around you, having a sense of God's calling, being able to pull through those tough times, consistency, resilience, all of that prepares you for the fruit to come.
Yeah, and it's like every beautiful tree starts as a seed, and that seed is planted in dirt. Dirt's not pretty, but the outcome eventually will be.
Yeah,
as long as you're consistent.
Absolutely. So life and legacy wouldn't be what it is today, I guess, without like strong leadership from yourself and from like the leaders we have in the church as well. So one of the questions we wanted to ask you was, what does leadership really mean to you today?
Yeah. So the best definition that I've heard of leadership is quite simply taking people from here to here.
He just moved his hand from a low position to a high position.
I was just going to explain that. For those that are listening and not watching this, it's moving people from one level to a higher level. Okay. So we can get really complicated on define leadership and define what a leader is and what a leader is in and everything. But ultimately, leadership is about people and taking them on a journey to a preferred place.
Yeah, that's something I find you're really good at. Hey, like you're really good at building other people to be leaders. I think that's what true leadership is about.
Thanks.
And you spoke earlier about like helping people find their purpose, and that's something that is easily recognizable in what you do in your pastoral care with people. You're always asking, what's God doing in your life? Like that's a leading question to ask. Like, let's have a deep discussion about and figure out what you're called to do.
Yeah,
it's not about you being self-centered, about what you want this church to become and what you want it to grow into.
Yeah,
it's like, hang on, how can I help like Al accomplish what he wants to do and figure out his purpose? And I think that's something you do really well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I find that when people that are living in purpose, and we'll break that down a little bit, because when I say purpose, I'm not necessarily meaning happy. I'm not even meaning that everything you do you like.
Yeah.
Because not everything I do I like. Right? There's some aspects of ministry and some aspects of I'm bivocational, so I'm doing multiple things. Yeah. But all of it comes together for me being satisfied, right? So, what was the original question? I went off track.
What does leadership really mean to you?
Yeah.
I think you answered that.
Yeah.
Pretty well. Like, it's all about the people, and I think that's a good definition of like servant-hearted leadership is putting people at the forefront rather than like sort of the organization, and knowing and having trust that the people will meet and rise, and as the people rise, the organization itself.
Yeah. So I mean that's what I was saying is like when people are living in their purpose, it actually takes care of a lot of issues that would pop up otherwise. Right? dissatisfaction in life shows up in so many different places, in so many different ways. It can show up in addiction. It can show up in being angry and irritable with your family.
Yep.
You know, there's so many. It's hard to define a dysfunction, but when something's not right, it's like, you know how a car's meant to work. But when it's not working right, you gotta. It could be this, could be that. You know, we might have to pull the engine apart and test this and fix that and put it back together. Oh, it wasn't that? It was something else. You know, it's very hard to define a dysfunction. So, not living a purposeful life, right, and not living in your purpose, could be displayed in so many different ways. And I find if you help someone to go, okay, where am I meant to be? Where am I? Give them a framework, help them with their thinking. That is a type of pastoral care. We're always thinking pastoral care, not always, but a lot of us, sometimes pastoral care can come across as, oh, I've got to help you with your problems. Some of the problems fix themselves when you help someone find their purpose.
Yeah.
You know, and not everything, but for me, that's, if I can find someone that has something on their life and they don't see it yet, and give them the opportunity to develop that. Coming back to our definition of leadership, so the definition is taking from a person or a group of people from one level to another level. The tools to do that is vision, right? You got to be able to, like, you don't drag someone from one level to another level, right? You build a picture of, this is what you could be, this is where we could be together, this is the common vision, this is where we're going, because there needs to be a holistic vision so you can work together towards something. So you develop that vision, go, okay, this is what it could look like. Would you come with me, right? And then you've got to develop another tool, your systems, and part of that is leadership development. All of these things come together to make a vision a reality, or to lead people.
I think one thing you said really well there was part of being leading people is you can often see something in them that they can't see in themselves.
Yeah.
And I think for myself personally, you often saw things in me that I necessarily didn't see in myself just yet, and you gave me sort of like, I just remember, like, over the years, you give me so many opportunities to, like, do this, to speak, to lead in this area, to do this, to do that, different jobs and stuff like that, when I often didn't, like, I was like, okay, I'll do this because of obedience kind of thing, but then, like, it sort of took me a while to sort of see that in myself.
Yeah.
And,
but to your credit as well, you stepped out of your comfort zone, right? So you can only lead people that want to be led.
Yeah.
You can only lead people that want to go to the different level. To some people, it's a fact that you'll present a beautiful picture of everything that they could be, and then they'll be like, yeah. And so, I think those people are a very small percentage of people. I think most people actually do want to grow, but you got to be hungry. You got to be hungry.
One thing I've recognized where some people get leadership wrong is they think leadership is like just instructing people what to do, and just instructing them, like, you've got to do this in order to get here. But I think what it really is like holding space for them and giving them the right tools to figure that out for themselves as well. And like, I think that's part of like helping grow leaders within like your church organization. You give them space, like whether it's Hedemiah, who is now doing like facilitating, and he's stepping out on faith, and he's not really good with public speaking, but you're giving him space and the opportunity to figure out himself, like where he fits in that, where can he overcome that fear of public speaking to eventually follow, like find his purpose, because that's something he spoke about, like was he feels like this could be part of his purpose, but he needs the groundwork and the space to do that.
Yeah, people need very few people understand their full calling when they're young, right? And most of us need to experience a whole bunch of different things. And we were talking about this before the podcast in terms of education and learning how to think. And for most of us, I mean, a few people when they're young, that's they athletes or something, they hit their peak quite relatively early when it comes to in life in terms of their purpose, right? But for most of us, we need time, we need opportunities, we need to we need to make mistakes, we need to waste time, and go not no time is wasted, but we need to look back and go, oh, I was barking up the wrong tree there. All of that is experience that comes together, and I think one thing I'll say to young leaders in our church is make sure you don't look at other leaders, and I hear this all the time because we've got great leaders in our church. And so younger leaders will look at other leaders and go, oh, I can't do it like him, or I can't do it like her. And I'm like, right, you misunderstand leadership. All right, you need to develop the leader that you are. Okay, which may mean you don't preach like that person. It may mean you don't preach at all. It may mean that that your style of leadership is not a sanguine type personality. I'm certainly not like that. In fact, I think in a lot of leadership circles, if I walked in as a young man, they would not pick me as a pastor. They would not pick me as a leader, right? Because I think times have changed, but there was a perception in a lot of certain circles, of a personality that came with leadership. And I think that's changing for the better, because there are a lot of great leaders out there that are actually introverts. Right? So and I went through this as a young person as well, just kind of going, okay, how should I live my life? Using two ministry extremes. I don't know if you've heard of Smith's Wigglesworth. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So and then so he's one guy in history. He was pretty radical, sort of seeing people healed and praying for people without legs and watching the stump grow out and like into a proper leg and all this sort of stuff. So he was like just radical. There's a story of him punching someone in the stomach and them getting healed. Like just stuff like you just wouldn't believe it. Pretty radical sort of stuff. And then on the other extreme, not extreme necessarily, but a very different style of ministry was like Charles Spurgeon, who was considered the prince of preachers, just an amazing preacher. You'd consider him more conservative. Very different styles of ministry, both very influential in the Christian world. And you're gonna go, well, then what should I pursue? Which one should I be? And the answer is neither. You got to be you and develop who God has called you to be. And so I think one of the parts of maturity of a leader is actually developing the leader that you are.
Yeah.
And you can glean from other people, but it's okay not to be loud like that leader that you idolize, or as well organized and as administrative as that leader, or as innovative as that leader. You can glean off them and go, okay, this is who I am, this is where I stand. And that's part of maturity, really, to actually go, I'm going to start getting comfortable with who I am. And just work the gifting that I have, rather than trying to be like other people. Or because there's two parts to that, you're comparing yourself with other people. You can become very insecure, and every leader will experience insecurity. If you're pushing the boundaries, if you're being innovative, if you're going out there, you're going to experience other people on the cutting edge as well. And you're going to experience people that are at a different level than you, right? And that's going to make you feel insecure, right? If you're going to just stick around in your comfort zone and not go anywhere, you're just going to be very comfortable and, not feel insecure because, I'm used to this. But learning how to deal with that insecurity and pushing forward anyway is it's where maturity happens. And it's where innovation happens, and it's where learning happens. And you got to have humility to be able to learn from other people. Other people that may not have as much experience than you, but have different giftings. So it all comes together as you learn the type of leader that you are. And coming back to your question, that's what we want to create here in our church. I don't want to make you a leader in my image. I want to unleash a leader that you are. And and however you're gifted, well, that becomes the tapestry of who we are as a church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. I think I want to get back to like a bit more personal. So we talk a lot about like leadership, like theory and stuff like that. But let's bring it back to I want to move on to like sort of like the pressure moments or the struggles that you've had, or maybe like we say like you learn a lot through the hard times, you learn a lot through the failures. So what do you think your hardest season has been as a leader?
Man, good questions, hey. I think the hardest stuff is always with people.
Yeah.
And there were a few times on the journey, even really early on, where relationships didn't go the way we expected. And when that happens, there's a real opportunity to deal with hard issues with yourself. I think leadership, and just in general, if you're going to go after your full potential, that journey is very purifying.
Yep.
Right? If you just want to stay where you are, you'll probably just be comfortable with who you are and your heart and where it's at. But if you're going to be chasing after your full potential, your purpose, there's a lot of ugly stuff that's going to come out, and God wants to deal with, right? And it's in those times of like pain where you're able to go, okay, deal with pride, deal with insecurity, all that stuff that sets you up to be able to handle the weight of, we'll call it success, the weight of the fruit of your labor that is to come. So I think it's a big hard issue. One of my friends told me, he goes, it was a very tough period of time, and you need friends like this around you as well. He goes, look, this is an opportunity for worship, and this is an opportunity for you to have your heart changed. He said it in different words. He said it much more eloquently. But it's an opportunity for worship and heart. Okay? And ultimately, that's the most important thing. That's where leadership comes from. It comes from, you can act like a leader and you can put on a front and you can do all sorts of things, but God cares only about one thing. He cares about your heart.
Yep.
And so it is a personal journey, and it's a personal journey that you need to do with Jesus. And different things will pop out for different people. We're all broken in different ways, right? Leaders included. There's people that you see on big stages with lights on them and whatever else. And if you don't deal with your junk, and if you don't, you're not honest with yourself about the stuff that you have, that you're carrying, it's likely you won't make the journey. And in my last 10 years, I've seen people that I would say top shelf leaders, people that I've gone to and, asked for advice, and, that haven't made the journey. And it always surprises me. And then Bethany and I will say, we'll talk to it, and it's like, you should stop surprising us. Because if it's leadership is not the stuff that people see. Well, leadership is the stuff that people see, but what sustains leadership is the stuff that no one sees.
Yeah.
And it's the stuff that comes out in tough times.
Yeah, I think you've got to be courageous to go after leadership, or go after something that you want that's outside of the norm, like reach your potential. There's a bit of courage that's needed to deal with those issues that come along, and quite often they are internal stuff that you're holding on to. So, like for you, was there any baggage that you felt you had to let go of to get to where you are right now in this point in your leadership journey with the church. And what I guess we're big on habits. So what were some of the habits that you had to employ to make sure that you're constantly reaching that next level, whilst also letting go of the things that you might feel were holding you back on your journey?
Yeah. I think one of the big things is the awareness that there are those things. I think a lot of leaders that when they get caught out by stuff, they have a blind spot. They just don't see it, right? And that they're completely caught out, and they never see it. Some of them, right? And so, for me, I want to make sure that I see the blind spot. Okay, so one of the things that I will do is, any criticism and stuff that comes in, obviously my wife and I will talk about it, and I'll run it past our eldership. Right? I'm like, I'm not here to try and protect myself or whatever. It's like, if I have a blind spot, I want to know.
Yeah.
Like, and if I come across as abrasive, for example, or people like are getting hurt because of how I interact, I might not mean that, but that might be a blind spot to me.
Yeah.
Or one of the things that I probably have noticed is that I expect people to be a little bit, I expect people to be on the same page as me without actually filling them in with the whole story. I just expect them, they join the journey and I'm like, okay, this is what you need to do. And and leaders do this, I think, a lot. And it's like, you expect people to be thinking what you're thinking.
Yeah.
So there are a few examples, but I think the big ones is just dealing with self-doubt, insecurity, all that hard stuff, right? I know it's like, someone listening to this might be actually looking for leadership principles and stuff like that. Let me tell you, it's the hard stuff. It's the hard stuff that actually either makes or breaks a leader, like long term. You can have all the skills in the world, but you won't have the mental fortitude. And when certain things happen, when certain things break you down, if you don't deal with that hard stuff, and the way you deal with it, to go back to your question about habits, I'm just always talking about this, but it's so true. It's all the biblical stuff. Are you reading your word? Are you praying? Are you talking to people? Because there is such wisdom in godly advice. I remember once we had something pretty major issue in our church go down, and I didn't sleep that whole night. It was a Sunday night, and I went to work the next day because I had to go to work, and I'm sitting at my desk and I can't really think and concentrate. And so I just messaged a few people, go, hey, look, just struggling here, just pray for me. Some friends, pastor friends of mine. One guy get back to me, go, hey, let's do a coffee now. And I'm like, oh, bro, I'm at work. He's like, all right, where's your work? I was in Toowong. I'm like, you have any breaks? Yeah, I'm between like 10:30 and 11. I got a break. I don't have any meetings between 10:30 and 11. It's like, all right, I'll come to you. So he rocked up, and he lived like 45 minutes away. He rocked up, spent 45 minutes with me, just spoke vision, spoke encouragement, spoke life. And then I'm like, okay, I got to go to work. And he left. And I'm like, and that's what brothers are for.
Yep.
Brothers are for a time in trouble. Right? And I called with Bethany, and I'm like, yeah. I'll tell you who it is. His name's Tosh. He's a legend, right? He preached in our church. Yeah. And I called her Bethany, spoke, just encouragement into her. But those relationships don't just happen.
No.
They developed over time, and then there's all the, confession and, talking to Jesus about it, speaking about it, and just being really brutally honest with yourself. There's no point. There's like anything that we try and justify about ourselves is actually holding us back.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not talking about speaking to everybody else or yelling it out on a podcast, but between you and God, if you can't be honest, there's self-deception there. And it's like, you got to be like, hey, I want to be better. I want to grow. I want to get through this. I want you to show me the ugly stuff so I can deal with it. And that's what I think builds strength. So in terms of habits, I think it's just the fundamental habits that will hold you strong. They actually work. Building good relationships, and also, you know, in your discussion with God, just being really honest and really longing to be self-aware. Yeah.
So, I mean, you spoke about some of the challenges you've had. You spoke about like having people in your corner to speak life into you, which is really important. But despite all those things, despite the support, you know, as you start to build yourself into leadership positions, or you're in the public eye, like as a pastor would be, you'd face a lot of criticism. People don't quite understand like you as a person. They think just because you're on the pulpit, that's who you are. But you know, obviously we have a sense of authenticity. Yeah. But they don't know the complete Kim on the pulpit. So they could probably like judge you in certain ways. You know, they may leave the church because of you or any other leader in the church. But like, how do you cope with dealing with the criticism of people potentially leaving, but also like in those dark times, is there any period of time where you feel like you want to sort of step away from your calling, or you're that convicted in what you're doing that you sort of work through the tough times?
No, two really good questions. I think for me personally, where in terms of stepping away from my calling, I think where I struggled with that, or where I may have had capitulated, if you like, is the concern that I didn't have what it took to take the church to the next level. Was like, maybe this is my capacity. Now, thank God at those points in time that, you know, I stuck it out and I grew through that, and we were able to. But that was my framework where I'm like, you know, I don't want to be the bottleneck here. And if that means even stepping away, then that's not a bad thing, because I think the mission's bigger than me. So that's sort of, if there's any what are sort of like, it's getting difficult, it was more like, you know, I don't want to be selfish. This is not I shouldn't at least make this about me.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like, I have had those thoughts and going, well, you know, it's really difficult. It's like, I don't know if I can, you know, in this space, take it to that next level. Maybe I don't have that leadership gift or that calling, whatever. So those doubts sort of, yeah, that came my way. And you know, again, it's just going, it's the simple stuff. I'm not going to tell you anything new here. It's going back to God. It's wise counsel, talking to Bethany, you know, working that through and just going, okay, this is not a change in direction that's coming our way. This is just me dealing with my stuff.
Yep.
Okay, this is me going, okay, I need to be, God is building my character, right? I mean, there's a lot of, like, we've talked a lot today about character when it comes to leadership. Yeah. There's a lot of skill as well that we can talk about. You know, there's administrative skill and organizational skill and developing vision and casting vision and all these, the minutiae of leadership, which is also very important. But ultimately, like, all of that will not matter, because you will fall over if you don't have the character sorted.
Yeah.
Right. Or as the age-old adage, you know, your talents will take you, or your character cannot keep you. So yeah, so that was probably where the doubt and, you know, concerns or thoughts about quitting may have come from.
Yeah.
In terms of criticism and so on, look, it's hard not to take criticism personally. Especially, you know, people can say no offense, but you know, and you're like, it's still offensive. Yeah. That's
No
offensive.
offense.
You know?
I'm going to say something that's really offensive right now.
Yeah, that's all you're saying.
That's it. So, you know, I've had it even in the last couple of weeks, right? Where, and I'm pretty open with it. I'll be like, okay, is this an opportunity for me to grow? And I'll show it to. I'll literally screenshot it and send it to our eldership, right? And I'll be like, yeah, let's talk about it later.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I don't hide it. I'm like, yeah. I mean, if there is a consistent issue that's coming out, then it's best that I deal with that. But it's annoying in the sense that often people don't have the full picture.
Yeah.
And I can't give them the full picture. And if I could, it would be damning for the person in question. And so you just kind of like, and that's another thing. Like, you know, I when I look at Jesus, he didn't like defend himself all the time, right? He had accountability, and so that's what I aim to do. I go, okay, I can't tell you everything that's going on, but the elders know everything that's going on. So you go talk to the elders, right? And they won't be able to tell you anything, but they'll be like, we know what's going on and Kim's doing the right thing. Right? So for me, I just want a stable structure. I want people to be able to trust me that I'm not a tyrant and I'm not like hurting people behind the scenes and just pretending to be a nice guy and all that. And that's just have a fake front as a leader. Okay. But a biblical church is like someone who is under accountability, and that's how we deal. It doesn't make it any easier. It still hurts.
Yeah.
Right? It's still, especially when it's unfair. But even then, it's an opportunity for us to grow and work on our pride, because, you know, hey, it's like, you know, you could say a lot of things about, you know, if you kind of really were looking for things wrong about me or wrong about anyone, you can find stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So if someone's saying something, there's already an issue with the fundamental relationship, and that's where you need to go to and go, okay, why is that the case? And like I said, often it's we're not at liberty to share what happened. You know, there's all sorts of reasons why people don't like the way you react to certain people in certain situations, and, you know, completely justified. But the narrative that's built on the outside, that for people who do not know and cannot know and would completely understand why we did what we did if they did know, can be quite damning and negative and paint leadership, including myself, in the wrong way. But the way I deal with that is a structural way. It's like, hey, there's a group of really trusted, experienced people. Like in our eldership, we've got 3 groups of people that used to be senior pastors, been around. Like some of them are close to 70, some of them in the 60s, some of them a bit younger. And so, and people trust them, people know them. And so, yeah. So that's how we deal with it, to make sure there's stability. But at the same time, like it still hurts. It's still annoying. You still have to suck it up, go to God in prayer, work on your own pride. It's like, oh, I shouldn't be treated like that. Why not?
Yeah.
Jesus was. You know, like, I mean, he was spat on and like, he's the son of God, and I can't take a word of criticism. Like, what makes me so special? You know, that's pride.
Yeah.
That's what pride is, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, well, okay, we'll suck it up, and this is the role, sunshine.
Yeah. I also think sometimes like some unfounded criticism is like more of a reflection on the person that's trying to criticize you, rather than you the person, like you yourself.
But you can't tell them that.
No, you can't.
You know, and you're like, you want to justify them by telling them that, but even that doesn't work.
No.
You know, it's like they should know, they need to know, and you're like, well, no, I mean, that's just justifying myself as well. And so sometimes you walk away from a situation and go, it was unfair.
Yeah.
They were wrong. They were foolish, and they walked away thinking they were right.
Yeah.
That's the worst place to be.
That's why Al and I, we speak about it sometimes with this platform, is like, Man, there's a lot of other podcasts, and you don't want to lose people in church, but there's a lot of other churches. If they don't agree with you, like just move on. Like go to that one. If you don't like what we talk about, then go listen to something else.
Yeah.
If you don't like the culture in a certain church, like there's other churches. Our goal is to be able to create an environment where people feel welcome. They feel like they're getting some value and they're growing, but we can't please everybody.
Yeah.
So we have the mentality of like, well, we hope that you get value out of what we do and what we're talking about, but if you don't, then just move on.
Man, there's one thing that I want to make sure that everyone who leaves this church doesn't leave with, and that's church hurt. Okay? So, so many people leave churches and they don't go back because they were hurt. And I don't want people to leave here with hurt.
Yeah.
So I'd rather let them leave having hurt me or hurt someone in our church than them leave hurt. And why I say that is because there's just so many Christians out there that aren't in church because they've been hurt before. And I think for the most part, except for maybe maybe one or two groups of people in the last 10 years that I can think of, and I could be wrong on this because there could be others, but except for them, which I think were situations that just, again, couldn't be avoided, miscommunication, mistakes, whatever. For the most part, we managed that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, look, I want you to go to another place. If you're going to leave, learn, grow, be healthy. I don't want to ruin something or be part of ruining what God could do in your life.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Just to get back onto leadership, I just want to talk. I got a question here that said, what mistakes do young leaders make today? And if I could follow that up with another question, like a bit of a hypothetical. So you got a young leader who's just starting out. He's just like got his first chance at leadership, and he experiences like a massive like setback. Like, he hasn't even had a chance to sort of really express himself. He experiences a massive setback and is just completely demotivated for leadership. And he's like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm not a leader. Like, just causes him to reflect really negatively. What kind of advice are you giving there, or how are you sort of pulling them out of that sort of rut?
Yeah. Look, I think even taking a step back from that, you really want to set someone up for success. So they don't experience that, because that's a very hard thing to come back from. Like if you like put someone behind the pulpit that's not ready to preach a message and they just crash and burn, it's a very hard thing for them to stand behind the pulpit again, for example. So you give them an opportunity just to do a little bit of facilitating, and then do a giving message, then do a 10-minute message, and then you build them up to something. And so a leader that has crashed and burned in whatever way they try to do something, I would just reaffirm the gift on their lives, and look, I see this in you, right? And if they respect you and they see the giftings on your life and the fruit in your life, then they'll trust you. Like, okay, maybe you see something that I don't, and if they're willing to trust you and allow you to mentor them, and there's a lot of humility in this, there's a lot of trust in this, and if you and then you work with you go back to the start, and then you start building them up. Okay, give them a small task, and then a bigger task, and then a bigger task, and this thing called leadership actually takes time, right? And if you give someone, including me, something that's larger than what they're prepared for, it will crush them. But the inverse is also true. If you give someone something smaller to carry than the load that they can take, it's just going to bore them, right? And so you've got to go, okay, where's the leader at, and how can, like, that's a big part of my role here is looking into the future. And as the organization has grown, I'm doing less and less stuff that other people can do. And a big part of my role here is to lift the ceiling so that people like yourselves have space to grow and to do other things. otherwise you know, I grew up in a small church. You can feel a little bit like cramped. You're like, I want to do more. You know, I want to see more. I want to be more. I want to grow more. And so you got to take. I think you got to take that leader on that journey, so they don't crash and burn. And if they do, take them back. Take them on that journey. It's good leadership to understand someone's capacity. Yeah.
I suppose like when you were talking about that, I was thinking about Jesus and Peter.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously Peter had a revelation about Jesus, like, you are the Messiah. And Jesus said, you are the rock, and all that. And like spoke that vision to himself. But then like he denied Jesus. And then Jesus came back and he said, you know, do you love me? And he goes, yeah, you know I love you. And then he's like, go feed my sheep. And he's like, do you love me again? Go feed my sheep. Go feed my sheep. So he gave us those little tasks. And then eventually Peter, like, you know, he became like, he led, you know, sort of like was the foundation for like the early church.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
he was the leader of the group for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, when, depending what it is, you know, I mean, if it's like a sin issue, like someone just crashes and burns, like, and they're like, oh, I'm not, you know, I can't go back and lead and that sort of thing. You just got to take them into the word and go, okay, what does the word say about this? Don't live your life on feelings. Live your life on truth. And then you take them through the word. Let them, and you'll see this a lot with new Christians, right? They'll get really excited. They'll be going really well. You know, I'm not going to be, you know, taking drugs and hanging out with old friends and all that sort of stuff. And then one weekend they just go, you know, to tell their friend about Jesus, and he's hanging out with a few of his friends, having drinking and stuff. And then this new Christian gets plastered, and they're like, oh, I messed it up. I can't go back to Jesus. And you're like, sit down, man. It's all good. You know, just chill. Let's look at the word. Let's go. And you just open up the arms, and, you know, you love on them. You care for them. You show them the love of Jesus. You show them a bit of scripture. You tell them about forgiveness. You tell them that sometimes, you know, we fall, and then that you reframe what they're thinking with the truth, and you pull them out of that rut. I mean, that's what a leader does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You spoke about preparing young leaders to, like, you know, potentially not crash and burn by giving them small incremental tasks to build their skill set.
Yeah.
I want to dive a bit more into what you do to develop leaders from a skill set perspective.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you try and implement into our church to build some of our leaders? I know there's a few things, but I'd like to get your perspective on that.
So we've got a leadership pipeline. That's something that I've worked on in the last year to kind of pull some formality and some framework around it. And we've got 3 different parts. We've got disciple, lead, and pioneer. So defining those different parts are really important as well, because again, if you put a leader in a position that he doesn't have the capacity for yet, you can crush him, and vice versa. You can just bore someone to death, and like they're like, no, you know, I'm not a leader. That's because you're actually boring them. There's something else. They're in the wrong path, rather. So defining those pathways, and so every leader, everyone, I believe, as a Christian, after becoming a disciple, you need to be able to disciple people. So that's the first part.
Yeah.
You should be able to lead other people in discipleship with Jesus, because Jesus tells us, go make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. That's not a pastor's job. That's a Christian's job. Okay? The pastor's job is to prepare the saints so they can do that work. Okay? So I don't baptize people and disciple them as a pastor. I baptize them and disciple them as a Christian.
Yeah.
Right? The pastor's job is above, in a sense, to help the people to do that.
Yeah.
So that's the first pipeline. The second pipeline is leading, right? What we call just plain old leading, and that's bringing together a group of people. You know, whatever it may be. It could be a tech team or whatever team, and we're going to set a vision. This is where we want to take it, and I've got some tools that I teach people on that, and we'll come back to that if you want to go there. as to how to lead that community, that group well, and to take them to where you want them to go. And then I've got a pioneer. All right. Now, pioneer is a very different thing to leading. Leading, you can be given a group of people. Like, think about a CEO, right? CEO comes into a new position. He's a leader. He's taking on something that's already existing, and he's going to take it to a new level, right? Yeah. But a pioneer is like an entrepreneur. He's got nothing. So if you were building a new ministry, a new service, you got to be thinking, you know, how do I? It's a different skill set building to lead something that's developed than it is to develop something from scratch. Yeah. So, and if you put a leader into a pioneer role, right, and they're not ready for it, they'll just feel overwhelmed, and vice versa. If you got someone that's just wants to pioneer, and you go, hey, look, I just want you to disciple these people, right? They'll be like, yeah, I've got to. By the way, a pioneer needs to be able to lead and to disciple, and a leader needs to be able to disciple. So they need to do all the above. But you know, if you are someone's there and he wants to do new things, he wants to innovate, and you just go, no, I just want you to lead this connect group, they're gonna get itchy, right? And so it's really knowing where is this person at. And then we've got like an advanced level in the sense that there are some of us that are actually called to be pastors, right? We're called to help maintain the framework so that Christians can and Christian leaders can be developed. And so we've got that, and that leads to ordination and so on. But so the framework, and I have a document with this, but basically each one of those pipelines has a number of functions that they need to do, and then we have a number of different opportunities for growth for them. Wow. Yeah, I know that's a long-winded answer, but
no, it's good.
Yeah, happy to dig into that further if you want more detail.
Do you want to dig into that?
No, I'm right. Yeah. I think that's cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. You know, you actually been intentional about taking people on a pathway and defining like the different levels of leadership that there are.
Yeah.
And
I think building clarity for people.
Yeah.
And go, okay, you know, what does leadership look like? You think about someone. Leadership is such a broad term. Okay, what does leadership look like for you where you're at? These are the different opportunities. Oh, I can see myself going there. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah. So I think part of the role of leader, part of the tools, right, is to bring clarity to people, right? We might see something on someone and go, you can be a leader. What does that even mean to a young person? Oh, okay, it's standing on stage and people looking at me. Maybe that's what it means. You're like, well, you know, let me flesh it out for you, and then let me take you on a journey, and let me help you if you go to this and you do this, and if you're part of this forum. We had our service leads meeting every second week that you were at. Was it last night?
Yeah,
it was last night. Right? Yeah. And so that's not mostly for the leaders. Oh, it's partially for the leaders because we need to organize ourselves and know what's going on. But a big part of that is for new people to come into and work out how leaders think. It's a training session, really. It's Jeremiah was there. It's the second time I think he was there, and he's getting an opportunity to go. Oh, okay, he's not even thinking about it, but he's learning leadership, right? So it's up to a leader to create these pathways, to create the right forums that over time. Some of these things are formal, right? I want you to go to that conference. I want you to do this. You know, I want you to do that course. But over time, you come out 5 years later and you're a leader. But that takes someone else to actually build that framework for you.
Yeah. I see that good example, and that was the evangelists, the young guys that are creating that and being pioneers in that realm of our church. And you can see already the emergence of leaders like Johnny and praises that are just taking it by storm. They had the energy, they've got the enthusiasm, the conviction all they needed was like the framework, the space, the idea, the potential to, and someone also to like speak life into them like you have, and you just see it starting to take off.
Yeah.
And they're doing amazing things. And
People have gold in them, man.
Oh man, yeah.
People have gold in them. We need more people to unleash the gold. That's what we need. And it's quite sad, really, that it takes such little, what's the word, encouragement, such little, opportunity, such little, I don't know. You don't have to do much to give people a step up.
No, that's right.
And just a opportunity, just a place to record a podcast. And there's so much that can come from that. Like I just feel the potential even in our church is so great. It's so great, and all we need to do is just create the right environment for things to grow. And that's the danger, I reckon. That's and that's what leaders need to look out for. It's you got to look out for that negative culture which gets built, which comes from heart issues, comes from pride, it comes from a lack of humility. All those hard things is what actually causes rot in any organization.
Yeah. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've noticed this shift in the last year for the most part. Like the energy in the building feels different. People are wanting to do more. And I just feel like there's just like we're on the cusp of a massive change, or like we're getting to the point, like a breakthrough within our church as people. Like we're kind of just a small community within our church, but I feel like there's just this massive expansion about to happen. And I don't know if you guys feel it, but even when you walk in on a Sunday, it's just different. I don't, and obviously that's work done way before, but it's definitely evident as soon as you walk into the building. Like you can feel the shift.
There's definitely God stirring things. Hey,
yeah, for sure.
I can feel it too. Just like you were talking about the guys doing the evangelism and stuff. Where did that come from? I started talking to people earlier this year, and they just kept talking to me about evangelism, and I'm like, okay, well, let's just introduce you guys. You guys have a conversation, and then they just started to just feed off each other, the energy, the excitement, and just the drop of leadership, and boom, it starts to go.
That's awesome. I've got a few more questions. Mine is about hearing God's voice in decision making and things like that. When you've got obviously a big decision to make about the church and things like that, how do you go about I guess hearing God's voice and discerning is that really God, and how do you confirm confirmation and things like that? Is it people that are around you, or is it just in your personal prayer time? What's the process there?
Yeah, so I guess what they would call that is your decision-making framework or decision-making matrix. So, look, for me, I know people have had radical encounters and visions and all that. I've never had that. I've never had the heavens open up and God say, I want you to do this, Kim. That's your calling. I believe it happens, and people have had amazing encounters going, I just know, and they look back to that calling point and go, oh, I'm not going to give up because I encountered God there and he told me to do this, and that's just not my story. I've just done what I believe God called me to do at a particular point, including starting the church, right? And then I've just followed the fruit. Okay, so that's been me, and as long as I'm walking with Jesus, my heart's right with Jesus, and I'm following the fruit of the fruit of the ministry and the fruit of the Holy Spirit, that's good enough for me. So going to when we need to make a big decision, right? I'm a big believer in counsel, so I'll pray about it. Bethany and I will pray about it. We'll get on the same page together, right? And after we've done that, then we'll go to the godly council. If it's a church decision, it's not a Kim and Bethany decision, right? It may be something like if it's buying a building or something major like that. If it's a cultural change, like what we needed to see in our church in the last year or so, there was a cultural change that needed to happen around discipleship because it wasn't happening organically anymore. We'd just grown through that. So that is something that I will be like very like, this is what God wants, and I'll talk to the eldership, and they'll very clearly go, yeah, obviously discipleship, we need more of that, and then I'll just roll it out from like a ripple from the inside to the leaders to the church, and we'll just keep reiterating it until the culture is completely built in, and the culture will take 2 years to build. But if it's a decision like, buying a building or whatever, I will go to the elders, talk to them, talk to the board, and I will talk to my mentors externally to the church, Pastor Gary, talk to Artie, talk to Andrew Carter, talk to some other people that I know have experience in this area, whether it be property or whatever the decision is, and we will come to a consensus, and it may not be 100%. There might be 1 or 2 people that are out of that, but ultimately we need to be moving as a unit, right? And go, okay. And if the board says, if it's a financial decision and the board says no, the board says no, right? That's what it is. It's a not yet. I can be like, I believe God is going to be doing this, but the board is there for a reason, and I'll respect that. Okay. And then if it's a spiritual thing and the elders, and I put that to them and the elders are like, no, then I'll respect that as well. But if I still feel that God is in this, like, I'll keep praying towards it, and I'll be working the ground until everyone senses that call of God and that vision, and are willing to make that decision and take our church in that direction. So I think it's very non-spiritual in a sense, even though it's a spiritual thing. God is speaking to all our different hearts, but that's how a biblical church operates. Right? That God places something on my heart or someone else's heart, and they tell me about it. I'm like, yeah, I think that's right. Let's do that. Let's pray about it. Yes, that feels good. Let's talk to the elders. Let's talk to the board. We're all on the same. Okay, let's then talk to our leaders. All right, well, let's talk to the rest of our congregation, and then we'll all go on this journey together. It's not a very what can I say? Exciting answer. I wish I could tell you, hey man, you need to go into the bush for 3 days and with a swag, and you look at the stars and you call upon God and he writes it in the sky. And I've never had. I do fast and pray, but I've never had sort of just like, you need to do this.
Yeah, that's good. I like how pragmatic that is actually, exactly, because I remember do you think there's an element of that, like that people should take that and apply it? I know, like in your personal life and stuff, you don't have like a board to speak to and elders and stuff like that, but you have people. And often, like when I was a young Christian, people would be like, go pray about this, pray about that, and I'd often get confused as to, okay, but like, how do I really know what to say or like what decision to make and things like that? Do you think there's an element like that young Christians and young leaders should like apply practically to how do you actually hear God's voice and how do you actually confirm that it is God, kind of thing? If you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. I'll be honest with you. I feel that some people they're looking for God's voice, and what they are is more superstitious than they are spiritual. Right? And, I was walking towards the door and it slammed shut. That's a closed door from God. Like, bruh, it's just windy outside. It's like, like we're looking for signs and stuff. It's like, this is God we're talking about. If he wants to let you know, he's going to let you know. Right? And he's going to let you know any old way that he wants to. But for the majority, as you look through scripture and things, like, it's quite normal. It's quite organic, right? So if I need to make a big decision about my life, obviously I need to get on the same page with my wife, and my wife's a very different person to thinks very differently. We come from very different backgrounds, so we end up like thrashing a lot of stuff out. And by the time we get to on the same page, we've thought a lot about a lot of things, right? And then, I think particularly young people, like, go and talk to your parents. I understand not everyone has that relationship and so on, but have a chat. Like, about financial stuff, they know stuff that you don't. And then, if you don't have that relationship with your parents, firstly, work on it. That's very important. The Bible tells us honor your father and mother. And if there's stuff that hasn't been dealt with in terms of that, then I encourage you to do that. But in the absence of that, talk to trusted people in the church. And if it's a financial decision, or if it's like, a relational decision, I want to marry this particular person, like, there is something about the community that you build around you that will ratify and go, yeah, that's good. That's going to be okay for you. And, sometimes we're such an individualistic society where we think we need to make all our decisions ourselves. It's like, that's not how families work. That's not how communities work, because everything you do affects everyone else. Like, if you are living in community, and that's the part of the problem, because a lot of us are not.
Yeah.
We're not living in community. Here's a thought, right? I'm married to Bethany, as you know. And the conventional wisdom in this world would be like, if you love your wife, you won't cheat on her, but it's that love for her that holds you together. Now, there's a certain element that's certainly true. But you know what? If I cheated on my wife, what would my father say? My father has expectations on me. He brought me up and so, what would my mother say? I'd have to watch my mom tear up and say, what would my kids say? Like, I want to raise 3 godly men, and what they're going to say, like, what right do you have to speak into my life when you treat my mother like that? And what would the church say about me? I'd have to front up and go, I messed up in this way. I'm going to have to step down from my leadership. And you're like, oh, well, that's not a good way to look at your marriage. Yes, it is. Because my marriage affects a lot more people than just my marriage. It's not just my marriage.
Yeah.
It's a foundation for family. It's a foundation for my external family. It's a foundation for other people. Like, I'm part of a community, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, the most fundamental thing is our relationship with each other, for sure. But there is a whole framework around that, right? And so when marriages break up and stuff, I just wonder, like, okay, great, that spark wasn't there anymore. How about the rest of the framework?
Yeah.
Where was that? And so people need to understand that even in making decisions and like, well, we're connected, or we should be. And if we're not, like, we need to get connected, because that's not a good way. You're not meant to live, or you can't live healthy when you're isolated.
No.
Right? You just can't. We're not created to live that way. So seeking the counsel of other people, I think is very important in making our decisions.
I like that. I like what you said about it sounds like you've been, like, your dad and your mum have instilled certain values in you that have shaped who you are.
Yeah.
And so I want to lead that into you're a leader within the church. You're a leader within the entire organization of our church and whatnot. But what's really important is that we lead ourselves and our family. And I want to sort of delve into a bit of what that looks like for you. What does it look like for you to lead yourself? And what does it look like for you and Bethany together to lead? And what are some of the family values and habits that you have around, like, your style of leadership within the home? Because that's probably most important. Rather than leading the church and that, leading yourself and leading your family should always come first.
Yeah.
So I sort of want to delve into what that looks like for you as a father and the head of your household.
Yeah. No, really good question. Because, just on the back of that question, because everything needs to flow from a healthy foundation, right? So it's out of the overflow that we need to be doing ministry. So Al actually speaks a bit about this, about keystone habits.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've worked hard on this and I'm not perfect at it, but having my devotion with God has become a keystone habit in my life. And if it doesn't happen, I'm not like, oh, I'm not a Christian anymore. It's more like an acknowledgement that that's key for a framework to build a life around. Actually living out my purpose, we touched on this earlier. I think living out your purpose helps you in your journey with God. If you're not living out your purpose, it actually makes it more difficult. But anyway, that's another point that we can touch on at another time. So a keystone habit for me is going, okay, even if I don't do it, if I miss it for a day, I recognize that that's where it starts.
Yep.
It's the acknowledgement of God. That's where the Lord's Prayer starts. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. It's like a recognition of who you are and who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And people listening to this might be like, oh, you know, it's just, oh, he's talking about prayer. Yeah, I've heard this before. Honestly, if you're not praying, you do not understand how important this is. Like, I cannot stress that this is one of those things where it's easy and you're like, oh, it is transformative if you do it consistently.
100%.
You do it for 18 months, you will be a different person. I'm just telling you. Prayer and reading of the word. So it all starts with that. Okay. Now Bethany and I, we haven't always prayed together. We've always done our individual thing, but we've put that, there's different points in our marriage where we're like, oh, we've got to make that happen, and we just, you know, get home late or whatever, putting the kids to bed has become difficult. But we've started that now. It's like we're going to be praying together, because that is powerful. So I think that's a key. There's some keystone habits. Okay, some things that we do with the kids. We do a devotion after dinner. We pray with our kids after dinner every night. When we put them to bed, we pray with them separately, individually. Bethany does that more often than I do, but when I'm there, I do it with them, and I've done that in different ways as they've grown. You know, sometimes I just we read a scripture and we just have a chat about it, that sort of thing. That's changed as they've grown up. But also, like I was telling you, around the dinner table last night, Bethany, she's reading the Bible, and it was that section in John is where Jesus was killed, and so Bethany goes, "Oh, this is the greatest event in history," and Luca pipes in and goes, "No, it's not. It was his resurrection when he rose from the dead. That was the greatest." And Micah's like, "Man, there's the ascension too. How about that?" And so we just like, I was careful not to go, "Oh no, this is the right answer." It's like, I want to hear from you, right? And so I'm like, "Why do you think that, Luca?" And that brought up other questions. And so I guess all to say, we really we foster questions, we foster attitudes, we don't shut them down. In terms of habits, those are the few things. What's really helped with us, Bethany and myself, is we are very different people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in terms of our upbringing, even the music that we listen to. You know, she grew up classically trained in violin, and I'm like listening to hip hop. So, you know, so, yeah, you know what I mean. And so, like one of but the very core things of who we are the same. We value God. We value family. We value consistency and stability.
Yeah.
Okay, and we like different movies. We like, you know, but that there creates, like, young people are like, you know, oh, you know, I love this person. We like long walks on the beach together, and we like hanging out and playing video games. Yeah, that's not gonna get you through.
No.
You know, it's your commonality in values.
Yes.
Because Bethany and I, we like very different things. But when it comes to God, when it comes to family, like it's those values that are just locked in. And I'll be honest with you, like, we got a really firm like marriage. We got a very firm. Like I'm very happy at home. You know, I love my kids, and you know, they can be a pain. Don't get me wrong. You know, I'm not always loving towards my kids, but it's like we're in a point now where the kids are out of that like real young age where you can just enjoy them a bit.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you know, having our third kid was just mind blowing. Like, you know, trying to do ministry and work and everything else. So. Yeah, so I think that keep the main things the main things. One of the things that Bethany and I said is we don't want to disciple other people and miss out on discipling our own kids. All right,
That's powerful.
so we want them to know Jesus. We pray for them. I pray every time I pray. I'm praying for my kids. I pray for my marriage, and I encourage everyone listening to do this. If you're married, if you're not married, pray for your future partner. If you are married, pray for your marriage. And then I pray for my kids, right? Every time I pray, right? And I think that's really important, because without a solid family, without a solid platform, like you know how it is, like, you know, if you fought with your wife and you'd go and doing your work, you know, you're pretty grumpy about it, and you know things are not flowing. And it's the same with ministry. You got a real dampener on your heart. When you're trying to move things forward and things aren't great at home. So does that answer your question?
It does. And I just wanted to add, it's not a question, but I wanted to add this, like, your kids and your family, your wife, like, they watch what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's like, you lead by actions.
Yeah.
A great, like, good example of that for me was recently, like, on Sunday night, my daughter, although she's been baptized, she raised her hand to give her life to Jesus, and we said the Lord's Prayer and that with her. And it's not something I ever told her to do, but through our actions as a family and our values, our faith being one of the biggest ones, like, our kids just followed suit without us like making them do anything in particular. So, like, if you've got a family, or you're about to have a kid, or you've got a wife or whatever, like, you've got to really be conscious of your actions and the values that you instill within yourself, and because that flows on to your family, much like what you said.
Yeah.
And it's so important to sort yourself out, sort your values out, what's important to you, because eventually, as you build a family and a community, that's going to overflow into everyone else.
Yeah. And I also say that, you know, there's points on your journey in the interim where things don't look like they're working out as well.
Yeah.
Like we had a, you know, with one of our sons, I won't say who, we had like a lot of like behavioral issues and stuff, and we're like, like there were certain behaviors that were coming out, and we're like, particularly after he started school, it's like, where's this coming from? You know, you're not hearing these words from home and that sort of stuff, and you're like, what is this? How do we deal with this? And we had our third kid, which just, life was nuts. Like, what have we done? You know, it was just really difficult. And so I don't want to paint a rosy picture like, oh, everything's great. Right now it feels really good.
Yeah.
But we've been through really tough times as a family. You know, stretched in different ways. But you know, again, putting God at the center, you know, having aligned values, and just being consistent, is what you're going to see, what you're going to see carry you through, and then you're going to be there for the fruitful times.
Yep. That's good.
That's awesome.
Last question.
Yeah, the last question was, just like, is there a final message or something you want to leave with people listening to this?
Doesn't have to be about leadership, just anything like God might have on your heart to let people know. Just to
Something
impart
about
some wisdom.
giving the podcast money.
Like, follow, share, subscribe.
Yeah. All of the above. Do that. Support these guys. They're doing a good work. Look, two things, if that's all right.
That's right.
First thing I think is, I see a lack of consistency in our culture, and I think you can do just about anything for 10 years, and you'll have a level of success at it.
Yeah.
because it's consistency that makes the difference. You may as well do something that you love and you enjoy and you're talented at, and then you'll see more success. But you can just about do anything for 10 years and you'll see a level of success if you're committed and you're consistent. You got that in your schedule, you're learning, you're growing, you'll have a level of success in it. And so I think people may look at you guys and look what they're doing a great job in podcasts and stuff, but you know, there's years of experience, there's years of hardship. You know, I'm sure you guys are nodding. That's you know, anyone our age, you know, it would have been through some stuff, right? That's just life. And if you're consistent in the important stuff, your relationship with Jesus, your marriage, your vocation, whatever it is that you've chosen to do, and particularly if you have kids, like, man, like, don't mess it up for their sake.
Yeah.
Right? And be consistent. And so that would be like my one message, particularly to young people that are listening. There's a marked lack of consistency in our culture, as people look to, you know, I don't know, get recognized quickly. The world's not made in that way. God hasn't made that. You know, everything finds its place in its own time. And the other thing I would say is, I would encourage people to go on what I call the purpose hustle, to actually look for what you are purposed for. That's not easy. It's not easy, firstly, to identify what that is. And then once you know, like, what I would like to do and what I feel, what contribution I feel I can make to this world that is uniquely from me. Once you know that, it may not be financially viable, and you might have responsibilities, and it might be difficult, and it may take time. It might even take 10 years of trying to invest and work it out so you can go and do that in time. But if you're in that hustle and you want to live in accordance with your purpose, you will get there. And the sooner you start that purpose hustle, the better. Okay, very few people have come straight out of high school and know exactly what they're meant to be doing and done it and loved it for their whole life. Right? And right now we live in a time of opportunity. There's so many things, there's so many ways you can make a living. There's so many, and you don't have to be, this has not always been the way. Most of history, we've just had to do what we needed to do to survive as a human race. But right now, we're in such a unique time that if we don't take that opportunity to gift the world with what we are capable of, mankind and civilization will never get to the crescendo that God intended. So I really believe that there is gold. There is gold absolutely everywhere. And that gold is kept under wraps by a system that is looking to enslave people to wealth, money, lifestyle, social standing, an understanding of retirement, of what life is about, and it's holding people down from being what they could be. And I believe God wants people to be released from that. It's a type of slavery, it's a type of deception that people are in and not unleashing their potential. So the rest of us can be blessed by what God has placed upon your life. And we live in a unique time in history where it is actually possible for large numbers of us to actually step into that. And so that is my encouragement. You know, it's going to take a journey. It's going to take some challenging our own mindsets. Going to take some planning, some deep digging. But I'm going to encourage you, this is worth it. It's worth living your purpose.
Wise words, bro. Wise words.
Encouraging.
Well, thank you for jumping on the podcast, man. Like, a lot of wisdom
pleasure.
there. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
fun,
me too.
man. Thank you so much for having me.
No,
I
it's
really
okay.
like that last thing you said about people unleashing their purpose. Like, me and Les talk about this. Like, we feel like we're living out some form of our purpose, doing this, and we got vision for, like, you know, to expand and
Yeah.
you know, just like
Come
we want to
on.
reach people, and we want to
Great.
we want the same thing. We want men out there to like realize their purpose and realize that they got so much more to give than just going to like a 9 to 5 and things like that. That they got so much more in their life that they can aspire to be, and just that's what we want. We want men to like live out their purpose and realize their potential,
Great.
and that's pretty much, this is like only the beginning for us.
Yeah,
And
I think for me, it's like the biggest part to living out your purpose and creating that like financial freedom and getting out of that 9 to 5 is I want to be the primary influence in my kids and my family's life. You know,
Right.
there's so many
That's a big
outside
word.
factors.
Primary.
Yeah,
I reckon that's a big word.
yeah. So I want to be that. Like, I don't want my kids to be influenced by things that don't align with our values. Of course, they're going to, but the more time we can as men and as fathers, we can be there with our kids and be that influence, like, the better. So the more people like your Purpose Hustle can reach, this podcast can reach, ultimately, I feel like we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think God is calling us to do this. I feel it every time we jump on a podcast. I feel like this is the right thing to do.
Great. Great, man. I love what you guys are doing. I love that. Yeah, I love the glint in your eye. You know, you're like, you know, we're gonna do something, and I have that sense when you see that, look, when you have that sense of satisfaction, when you're like, yeah, this is something that is bigger than me. This is, I love this. I love this statement. Like, I think it's Paul Washer. Someone says that it's like, you know, when you're doing something that God wants you to do, and He fills you with your Holy Spirit to do it, you're more than just a man. You're God's man. Like, you become something other than just Les and Al and Kim. You become filled with the Holy Spirit. Like, you're doing something. There's this, you know, when an artist is writing a song or singing a song, that's truly an artist, that's made to be an artist. You know, I can sing, Al can sing, you know. We don't do it anymore, but we could if we had to. But when you get someone that's what they're made to do, and they sing, they connect with God in a different way, and it's filled with joy for them, and it's also something mind-blowing for us. And that's why I think, you know, people that are missing out on their purpose, they're missing out on, you know, a mother that's purpose, and God's called to be a mother, right? They experience such joy, there's such satisfaction, that there's so much to it. They're living out, there's a satisfaction in their lives, and that overflows and colors everything else, right? And that's what I think ultimately we want for people, because there's so many people out there that are just bored, they're wasting their time, and you know, it's showing it out in anxiety and depression and so many different things. And it's people not living their purpose and experiencing what it feels like to do something supernatural, to be connected with God. And I really have, purpose is a big part of that.
yeah,
You can tell someone, oh, you need to pray more to experience it. Yeah, that might be true to a certain extent. I think you need to do what God's called you to do to experience the presence of God. And so, you know, I can sense that, you know, there's a tangible excitement with you guys, and you know, and you got a chemistry together, and that's really cool, man.
Yeah, I was a really easy guy to be around. It's always, we always have fun, eh?
yeah.
It's always great.
We do. I gotta tell you a story later, bro. We're off air.
No, but thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to episode 6, man. That was a really insightful chat. So
Yeah.
hopefully you guys got a lot from it. Like, subscribe, follow on all the socials, from Instagram to Spotify, YouTube, TikTok.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, everything. So,
Apple Podcasts too.
yeah, that's right. All right, thank you, men. We'll chat soon.
Okay.
All right. What we've heard today isn't just about leadership, it's about life. Because real leadership was never meant to be easy. It was never meant to be comfortable. And it was never meant to be carried alone. It's built in the unseen moments, and the pressure no one sees, and the obedience when no one is clapping, and in the decisions to keep going when everything in you wants to stop. And maybe the hardest truth of it all is that leadership doesn't reveal your strengths first, it reveals your weight. So whether you're leading a church, a business, a team, a family, or you're still in the process of becoming the person you're called to be, don't chase position before you can carry pressure. Don't chase influence before you've built integrity, because influence might open doors, but character is what keeps you standing when those doors swing wide open. A huge thanks to Pastor Kim Anthony from Life and Legacy Church for joining us today and sharing not just his story, but his heart. And to everyone listening, don't just hear this. Carry it, live it, and let it shape you. Because the real question isn't how strong you look on the outside, it's what you can actually carry when no one is watching.
This is your 1 rep max.